After visiting several Caribbean islands, St. Lucia surprised us in ways we never expected. This is part one of our comprehensive St. Lucia planning series. We'll discuss where to stay, what to do, and transportation options in upcoming videos. But today, we are covering the essentials you need to know before you even book your flight. We stayed on the island of St. Lucia for 12 days and had accommodations in both Marigot Bay as well as Chzhed, and then drove all over the island to explore its entirety. So this comes from real experience. The first thing you really need to consider is St. Lucia weather. It is incredibly muggy and buggy, a little bit more than I expected, to be honest, even though I've traveled to other Caribbean islands with similar weather. I will say that the mugginess and bugginess is much more prevalent in the Marigot Bay south portion of the island versus in the north near Rodney Bay. And you're going to need a really good bug spray to ensure that you're not eaten alive. Unfortunately, I'm allergic to most bug sprays, so I have to use that natural eucalyptus style. And it is okay, but it's not nearly as effective as, say, the bug sprays that have DEET in them. So if you don't want to get bit, make sure you plan ahead and bring your good bug spray for this trip. That being said, it is rainy off and on. This is a tropical island with a very tropical feel. So there are bursts of rain. It's usually not an all-day affair, though all-day affairs can happen. Now, timing, you do want to make sure that you are paying attention and are cognizant of the hurricane season, because it's a real thing. Although St. Lucia is right in the hurricane belt, it really has only had 14 direct hits over 150 years. So it's not as common as you might think to have a direct hit on the island. However, it's important that you realize that June 1st through really November 1st is the peak of the hurricane season. So you want to plan accordingly. Make sure you get your travel insurance just in case there's any disruptions or storms coming to affect your trip. St. Lucian culture is important to understand when you're traveling. While we've encountered friendly people throughout the Caribbean islands, there's just something special about the St. Lucian people. They were so overwhelmingly friendly, very helpful, curious, wanting to know about you and where you came from. We had some great conversations with locals and really bonded with some of our servers at the different restaurants that we dined at, hotels that we stayed at. I will say overall, it was the best part of the culture was the people and our encounters with them. Now, English is widely spoken, but they also speak Creole and Patois, which are their local languages. They are a little bit more family-friendly and conservative. One thing that I found interesting and didn't really know about until I started reading about it was that camouflage. That is banned in St. Lucia. So don't pack any camouflage pants, camouflage tops. It's not accepted. Probably the favorite thing about St. Lucia for me was that it has much more of a local and less touristy feel than a lot of the Caribbean islands that we visited. While you do find the touristy areas, overall the island just feels a little bit more authentic. It's not just designed for the Western tourist. You get a sense of the real culture and get to experience it as you explore the island. So with any foreign travel, you need to know about the currency. Now, the US dollar is widely accepted throughout the Caribbean islands, and that includes St. Lucia, though the Eastern Caribbean dollar is also their main currency. So when you are shopping, all of the dollar amounts are going to be in the Eastern Caribbean dollar. Though the exchange rate is usually 2-to-1 for the US dollar, that still means that prices are a little higher. You got to remember that they are importing just about everything to the island, so that is going to add to the cost just with the transportation alone. You can have a great stay on a budget, especially if you are cooking in and have access to a full kitchen. However, if you are dining out, your daily expenditures are probably going to be $150 to $250 per day. If you're finding this information helpful so far, give a quick thumbs up and subscribe for more authentic travel information just like this. And if you're already looking to plan your St. Lucia adventure and getaway, let's connect. I'd love to help you. There's a link in the description to book a free call with me, and let's get you traveling and exploring this incredible island. Another huge concern when we're traveling is overall safety. Now, St. Lucia has a level 1 safety rating, which is just to use normal caution. But I will say, when you're going to a Caribbean island, a lot of times people just forget themselves and just surrender to paradise, which of course you want to have a great experience. You want to relax, you want to run away from your troubles and just be carefree and fancy free, right? However, there is no place that is utopia. So you have to still be mindful of your surroundings. You have to use your regular common sense and just be aware of what's going on around you, because no matter where you go, there are people that may want to take advantage. There are people that may want to harm you. So just be aware of that, use normal caution, and have a great time. You can explore Castries and have a great time. You can explore Soufrière and have a great time. Again, these are very friendly people on the island, but just like anywhere, no matter where you go, there's going to be elements of society that maybe you don't want to encounter or interact with as much. So be alert, be aware. Have a great trip, but don't forget that you're in paradise, but it's not utopia. Other general things when it comes to safety that I get asked a lot is about water. Now, I'm a huge water drinker, and the tap water is safe in St. Lucia to drink throughout the island. I do recommend making sure that for food, you are just following, again, normal guidelines. Remember that the cooking there, if you're allergic to something, ask about the ingredients. If you are eating roadside food, most of the time it's fine, but again, it is roadside food, so just be aware of that as well. And make sure you bring some of that medication with you, like the Imodium AD, especially if your tummy is a little sensitive. But overall, we had no issues when we were traveling there and enjoyed our stay, enjoyed the food, enjoyed the tap water as well. So now what to pack? Now, I'm not going to go through what kind of outfits and how many, any of that kind of stuff. I'm going to dive into this section with a little different angle. We already talked about how muggy it is and buggy it is, so make sure you bring that bug spray. Now, you can get it on the island, but as I mentioned earlier, it's going to cost you a little bit more. The other thing is reef safe sunscreen. They have some of the most beautiful coral reefs there, and they want to protect that. So please pack reef safe sunscreen for your trip. Another thing to remind you of is, remember earlier I mentioned do not pack any camouflage. It is banned on the island, so don't even bother bringing it. Another thing to keep in mind with packing is the electricity. It is the UK system of electricity throughout most of the island, though some of it does have the American outlets. Both of our accommodations, they had the UK plug, so we had to ensure that we had something that plugged into the UK outlets or the adapter to adapt our US outlets into the UK ones. So just make sure you check with your accommodation what type of outlets they had. Now, when we toured the Sandals Resort, they had the US ones, but if you're staying, like when we stayed at Margot Bay and when we stayed at La Haute, both of those had the UK. So there is a mixture on the island. Check with your accommodations before you go so you know if you need an adapter or if they already have it set up for you. And then finally, make sure that you have 6 months of validity on your passport. That is super important to make sure that you have that, because you're not getting let in without that 6 months of validity on your passport. So the island geography, it looks like it's not a very big island, right? Well, it is a lot of mountains and it's a lot of twisty, windy roads. And while it's not a big island and the roads are, well, they're okay, but they are narrow and they are windy, especially in certain sections, it can take you an hour and a half to 2 hours to get from the main airport, UVF, down in the south tip of the island, to your accommodations, even midway in Margot Bay, or even further to the north in Rodney Bay. So just be prepared for that. It's not a short trip. Now, there are different ways to get from the airport all the way to your accommodation. You can take a water taxi, you can take a helicopter. So there are some other options out there, but most commonly it will be either a shared taxi, or if you're renting a car, you're going to be driving that, and just pack your patience. Speaking of geography, that brings us to our next video in this series. In our next video, we are going to talk about the difference between the North versus South and where to stay, whether to stay in a resort or a local small boutique accommodation, as well as other practical tips on choosing where to go. We stayed in 2 different locations on our trip and have first-hand experiences of both of those areas, the advantages and the disadvantages. I also toured 6 different properties during that trip, so I can give you some real practical advice on where to stay. Make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss anything in this travel planning series. And if you're ready to start planning your St. Lucia adventure, make sure you head on down to the description, click the link, and let's connect so we can get you exploring St. Lucia. Until next time, travel safe.
Where are we going next? Let's go.